Welcome to The Call to Create. I'm Betsy Bush. Today we're joined by a dynamic duo whose love for theater has stood the test of time. My guests are Kathleen Mahan and Steve Taylor, who first crossed paths as aspiring professionals in a Manhattan tap dancing class, which led to marriage, twin sons, a day job, and a move to the suburbs. As their kids grew and eventually flew the coop, they both returned to their first love. Kathleen is now a director and theater arts teacher, working with both kids and adults. And after years of involvement in local theater, Steve has recently re-entered the professional theater world. Steve and Kathleen, I am so happy to have you on The Call to Create. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, we're all theater nerds. I've referred to myself as a musical theater person, aspiring at one point. Tell me about how it was that you met and came to New York. Were you like the fresh out of college, starstruck kids, or what brought you to New York all those years ago?
I went to school here. I left right after high school and went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Oh.
So I just, was 18 and here I was.
Wow, that's great. Well, I went to NYU as an 18-year-old.
Right.
I'm surprised we didn't cross paths back then.
Could have.
How about you, Steve?
I was involved in a lot of music and theater all through my youth. And when I was in high school, trying to decide on a college or on a major and what I was going to do, my dad out of the blue just said to me, well, would you want to maybe major in theater? And I was like, it never even occurred to me that was a possibility, that would be allowed. And I was like, well, okay. So I ended up going to West Virginia University and got a theater degree. And then from there, everybody's plan was to come to New York. So I moved to New York when I was 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was that like as young, kind of just starting out professionals? What was that like, doing the rounds of auditions or trying to do auditions and all of that, being part of the cattle call?
Sure.
Yeah.
All that. Well, I mean, you're also young, so you also have this life when all of a sudden, literally everything you could possibly want to do and every possible type of person you'd want to hang out with was there, right, in New York City. So it was really exciting and very busy, and it was just your life, So sure, you went to cattle calls, and everybody had to get their picture and resume, right, and everybody had to try to build up your credits and try and get summer stock jobs and try and get on soap. So it was very busy, but perfect for someone just in their 20s to put in that time. I know you had a similar experience.
I was clueless. I admit it. I didn't know what to wear. I didn't know what to sing or anything else. I had to find some teachers and get myself through.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a lot like a chorus line, right? All the
yeah.
Right, dragging the dance bag around with all your stuff in it, and
I mean, we were all clueless in our own way. Some of us just didn't think we were, but in many ways we were. You learn as you go along, So just like any other profession, I suppose, to some degree. Yeah.
So did you start getting jobs? Was there traction? Were you starting to get places? Did you feel?
Well, I mean, I was doing stuff. The first couple of years was a little bit of adjustment, but then later on I started getting summer stock jobs, and I started doing some work, extra work in films and some things in soaps and stuff like that. So I was starting to get a little traction. Yeah, you gradually get traction just from being there. You start to figure out how to do things. Yeah.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah.
You get summer stock and
And then when we got married, actually, often that's the first step to sidetracking your career. But I think for the first couple of years for us, it made things a little bit easier, right? Because now both of us were sharing the rent and sharing the food and so forth, and supportive of one another. So it was okay to maybe not make as much money, and go and do this theater job for a couple $100 a week, and while the other person kept the fires burning. So, in some ways that was easier, but yeah.
And so you met in a tap dancing class? Okay, you have to tell me about that.
Okay.
We met. A mutual friend recommended that we take tap. I was going into a show where I was going to have to tap, so I took the class. And Steve, I don't actually know why he was there.
Just add another
Just another thing.
arrow, in the quiver,
And we saw each other, and and then the first time we went out was with a group, and because our friend met us, and then we just kept seeing each other twice a week in the class, and eventually Steve asked me out.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly
That really is how it happened.
And did the tapping lead to any jobs? Was that useful? Was that a useful skill?
No, it was the only show, actually, the one that I was going into No Nanette, and it was the only show that I was in stock, and it was the only show I ever had to tap in. So
I've never tapped in a show in my life, or tapped even for 2 or 3 decades. So I was just there to meet girls.
The truth is out, right?
Not really.
Although No Nanette's a fun show. And
It
what
is fun.
Fun
It is
music,
fun.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so eventually, though, I mean, you get to the point, and this happened with myself as someone who wanted to, I was thinking of a broadcast career at some point, broadcast journalism, but I think some point it's like, do you keep knocking on the doors that aren't going to answer, or do you look for something else and live the life you want to live, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that happens to a lot of people in theater, where it's like, this is not going to the place I wanted to go.
I found for myself, I was starting to find the pockets of the industry, of the business, where I could actually work, where I could actually make a living. And what I started to see was, but I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. There's, like I said, there's a lot of extra work out there. You can do tours, you can do industrials, you can do a lot of stuff in the industry as a performer that will make you money. But if it's not what you love, then why are you making the sacrifice to do something that you don't really enjoy either? Mm-hmm. Why would you go on a 2-week tour of a children's show in tiny little venues and leave your newborn kids at home and miss 2 weeks of their life? You know what I mean? And that's when we got to that conclusion. Let's just stop this for a while.
No. So, Steve, you took a day job, which was actually a pretty good day job. Do you want to just kind of say what you were doing for?
Yeah, sure. I was a word processor to make a living. I always like to say my 9th grade half a credit of typing class sustained me with the skill I needed to make a living for 10 years. So I was a word processor on the midnight shift at big law firms here and there and everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so then I took that on full time. And then right from there, it was right when people were really starting to use computers in the workplace. So these lawyers had these computers. They had no idea how to use them. Mm-hmm. I was working on the midnight shift. So they would call word processing and say, how do I do this or that and the other? So I started doing that, and next thing I knew, I was really almost more an IT person. So I went to IT and I said, hey, I should work in your department because I'm doing this anyway. So then I found myself in IT department and did that for over 20 years.
That's great.
Yeah.
Right? And then that leads to a comfortable life in the suburbs, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And Kathleen, how about you? I know you were busy with twin boys.
Yeah, I didn't work once the kids were born. Mm-hmm. I had a full-time job.
Yeah.
So, but I had, up until then I had, waited tables, I was a hostess, I was a shoe model.
A shoe model? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the showrooms, yes. Mm-hmm. And, and had done a lot of that. So, but then we had the kids, and that was,
Yeah.
that was my
But
job.
as soon as you could, Kathleen started getting back into restaurant work and different things a couple days a week and once the kids went off to school, then doing stuff during the day and all of that. So
but your love of theater and music it never really went away, and you always kind of like there was a low percolation
Yes.
level, right?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
I happen to know you're involved in a weekly choir,
Yeah.
which is a great way to keep your hand
Mm-hmm.
in, right? A church choir where you're singing and learning new music and
Absolutely.
can be challenged and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. And then kids are out of high school,
Right.
out of college even,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and then your life opens up. Yeah. So what happens?
Well, I actually started teaching before when they were in, I guess, middle school. I started with a couple different companies teaching. The directing came a little bit later, but I had various classes in towns all over Westchester and Connecticut, for that matter, and I could do that, after school classes and things, improv and scene study with kids, mostly elementary school age, and then got and then it just kind of moved into the directing, which turns out I love.
So directing, and so you go from working with elementary school kids, like doing doing their musicals or the
scenes.
scenes
Yeah,
and
just
stuff
scenes.
like that.
Yeah.
But then you make a big leap. A
Yeah.
couple of years ago,
Yeah.
you directed a really wonderful production of
Clybourne Park.
Clybourne Park that was really, it just blew me away because there
thank
were
you.
it was a complicated play with a cast that had two different. You worked with the same cast, but they had different roles in both acts.
Right.
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 And it was had a very contemporary feel about how a neighborhood is changing, and the ownership of a house switches from a white owner to a black owner, and then 50 years later back to a white owner when the neighborhood starts gentrifying again.
Yes.
You have to think it through, don't
And,
you?
have to think it
you
through.
know, and like, where does it start, and it seemed so contemporary, and it certainly is a
Yeah.
recent play, but it was just so great the way the cast worked and the timing and all of that. How did you get around to directing? How did that start?
Started with kids, right? You were
It
doing
did
some
start
kids
with
shows.
kids.
Yeah.
It did start with kids, and this was how I first got into teaching. We moved to White Plains, and we started almost right away going to Hitchcock Presbyterian Church, and I was, singing the choir, and the person there was a talent show, and with the teenagers, and I was asked to help out. That's all, because I'd, been an actress. And so asked to help out. So I said, okay. And there was one rehearsal where it was almost to the performance weekend. And the teens had been given, I had no choice in any of this. They had been given the song Seasons of Love, the whole group, Seasons of Love from Rent. And they rehearsed it. And it really wasn't very good. And they went through it once, and I thought, I can fix this, I think. So I gave them some direction. I changed the staging a little bit, and without thinking, and they ran it again, and it was a lot better. And I thought to myself, I didn't know I could do that. Really? Really? And I walked away, and one of the moms who was in rehearsal, one of the moms of the teens who was in rehearsal, stopped me, and she said, "You know how to do this." And it had never occurred to me before. And it was Eileen Zambetti, by the way, who said that to
right?
me. Yes. But no one ever, somebody my age, women weren't told that they could direct or write, for that matter.
Right.
You were an actress, a dancer, singer, whatever. Never occurred to me before that, honestly. And I thought, that's when I, started thinking, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can develop this. Maybe I can work on this and grow and get a little better.
Well, so how did you work on it?
I got a teaching job almost right away. No, the kids were too small. It was a little bit later. And I started teaching with the kids, and then I was given some other opportunities to direct children. And at some point, we're very active in Elmwood Playhouse in Nyack. And I thought, I could do this. So I assisted a director a couple times. I did a workshop, and eventually was given my own play. The first was Sweat by Lynn Nottage. And then I skipped a year, and then came Clybourne Park, which it's an extraordinary play.
It really is.
It's perfectly written, and I had an extraordinary cast.
You really did.
Absolutely. From day one, we all worked together really well, and it was just a joy.
And you've since this, and then this year, this January, you did
Significant Other,
which was a very different kind of play.
Very different. Yes, very different.
Yeah.
But fun, and a fun cast.
Yeah.
And that was fun. That just ended. So.
Yeah. So, are there books that tell you how to direct, or is that just something you pick up and it's a lot of observation? How do you learn that?
Well, I mean, you can go to school and major in it. You can go to college and major in it and take classes. I think you just go to the theater all the time.
Yeah.
I think you just go to the theater as much as you can. That's how it was for me. I watched other directors, and Steve and I go to the theater all the time. We saw a production of Steel Magnolias last night in Rockland County Community Theater. And after this, we're going to Connecticut to see a production of Moon Over Buffalo. So I go to the theater at least once a week. I see something. And it's not necessarily The Lion King or Wicked or the latest Broadway musical blockbuster, but I go once a week at least to see something.
Oh.
And we were married 35 years, and we talk. Barely a day goes by that we don't talk about something that's related to theater. So when we finish seeing a show, we'll come back and say, how come that joke didn't work? Oh, because she paused right before the punchline. Or how could that blocking was a little too busy. So that's part of it, too, is that constant thinking about it all the time and then getting a chance to
Which does
do it
not
your way.
mean that we can't get lost. Completely lost in a play or in a performance that's absolutely wonderful. It's not like I'm constantly criticizing or taking apart what I see. I can get completely wrapped up in a show.
But when you see so much, that's really when you become discerning. And when you really see something incredible, then you know. If you go to the theater once a year, you love everything.
Right. Maybe. Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Well, it's funny when you see really, really good things, a lot of times it's hard to identify precisely what it is that made it good because you do get lost in it. In some ways, it's easier to see something that has shortcomings and go, I know why that didn't work. But why did that work? I don't know. It takes a while to figure it out sometimes.
That's the magic.
Yeah, the magic, exactly.
Wow. Yeah, is it the direction? Is it the production design, the lighting, the costumes?
You hopefully don't know.
Yeah.
You hopefully don't know.
Magic is a key thing. There's some kind of magic ingredient in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. So, Steve, you are now starting, you've kind of revved up your acting career.
I have. I was lucky enough to be able to retire in 2019 with the idea I was going to do something else. Wasn't quite sure what. I wasn't definitely going to get into performing, and I gradually started getting involved in, more theater and so forth. And then COVID hit. So for a couple of years, everything just went.
Especially theater, right?
Exploded. Theater was nothing for 18 months. And I really feel like this is the first year that theater's really come back, So after that sort of pause, as I started to get things going again, I just kind of said, I'm going to go and I'm going to try and get a summer stock job just to have a place, go somewhere by a beautiful lake, And so just this past year, I really kind of I put myself out there a little bit, and I was cast in a show, Newsies, and then I was putting out a few other feelers here and there. And the next thing I knew, I did 3 back-to-back shows in 1 year. You know, between June and December, I was in 3 shows, boom, like that, 3 professional shows. So,
Wow.
so I was like, oh wow, so the possibilities really are there. You know,
Are these straight shows or are they musicals?
all musicals. Yeah, all musicals. I can do straight shows too, and I have. You know, but that little extra edge, you know, is what's working for me right now. So, you know.
So are you finding yourself, you know, maybe when you started 40 years ago, 35 years ago, there was a big peer group of yours. And has it
Definitely.
thinned out now? And you're finding that there aren't as many people going for the same roles? Or what do you think? What's happening?
I'm not sure. I think to some degree that's true. So for a man in his 60s, or even I can play roles into my 70s, I think that people have been doing this professionally for a good part of their lives. Maybe they're at the point where they want to retire. I want to come down off the road, you know, or whatever. Other than that, I'm not sure. But my sense is that, yes, certainly compared to a 25-year-old woman who's a singer and a dancer, where you might get a couple hundred applications, literally. You know, I think it's a much smaller pool for what I'm doing. On the other hand, there's not nearly as many roles. In the shows that I do, usually there's one role for me, right?
Right.
There's one guy, that one 65-year-old guy.
The grandpa,
you know,
or
the grandpa, the avuncular,
Right.
you know, character or whatever he is, or the villain. You know, so I actually have a whole database for myself of here's the shows that I could do, there's the role I could do, and I just keep watching for where they're doing that show, and I just kind of zero in on that.
So how far are you willing to travel for a role?
Oh, Kathleen asked, and I
Kathleen, how far is he allowed to travel? for
as
a
far
role?
as she allows me. I submitted for a show in Colorado. I submitted for a show in Arizona. I wouldn't want to go
I didn't
for
know
a
about
year.
Arizona.
Oh yeah, Arizona, yeah, right in the middle of the desert. I wouldn't want to go there for a year, but for a month or two, you know. Actually, this spring I'm going to be in South Carolina for 9 weeks.
Wow.
And that's
Hilton Head. No,
in Hilton Head, South
Hilton Head.
Carolina, and it's the longest that Kathleen and I will have ever been separate. You know, so that's tough, and we enjoy each other's company. So I don't want to be away too long, but you know,
Can I ask what the role is?
it's the role of Joe in the musical Waitress. Are you familiar with Waitress?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
So Waitress is about a woman. She's a waitress in a
It was
pie
on
diner.
Broadway not too long ago.
It was on Broadway.
And it was
yeah.
the movie. It was based on the movie.
Jessica Mueller originally. And in the movie, it was Andy Griffith that played the role, my role. He's the owner of the diner, who's a very curmudgeonly older man who complains about the temperature in the diner and all that. But then underneath, he has this soft side and this affection for the waitress. And he's really more like a father figure underneath that gruff exterior. So, yeah.
I'm curious as to whether you do any vocal coaching or training or anything like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've been taking, voice lessons and doing some coaching pretty much all of my life, even when, year over year. I took a lot of lessons with a wonderful teacher named Richard Slade, who lives in New Rochelle, and he took my voice to a different level, honestly. So as a voice teacher, he was great. And now, voice coaches are really more about working on material and helping you to interpret rather than the vocal technique of singing. And I've worked with multiple voice teachers for various things. Each one has their own thing to offer. In fact, I'm working with one now who's in California. We're working on material and trying to choose stuff over Zoom. So,
Wow.
and now with Zoom, you can hook up with anybody,
No, so you've taken lots of classes at the Barrow Group in
I
the
take
city,
classes at
scene
the Barrow
study
Group, yeah,
and things like that.
and
so.
yeah. So
So if someone were listening and saying, "Oh man, I would love to do that. I'd love to," I gave up. I gave up the dream when I was in my early 20s, mid 20s.
Yeah.
How would you recommend someone get back into it?
Well, it depends on what you want to do. I mean, there are many opportunities here in this community, in Westchester, in Rockland County, in northern New Jersey, in community theaters, and I'll tell you, they're darn good. I mean, these are people that are trained. These are people that are experienced, talented. But there are definitely opportunities for newcomers too. They're always looking for new people. So it's as simple as finding an audition and going and singing, you know, or taking classes. Most of these local theaters take classes, or you could go into the city and take any number of classes in acting and singing and dance, whatever you want to do, just to get your feet wet and figure out what's next. You just got to get out there and do it, you know. And
That's what I say.
and then you meet people, right?
And
So
then
then
you
you
meet
do that and
people.
you meet people. Hey, you were great in that scene you just did. I'm doing a reading, you know, at the wherever.
Yep.
Could you come and play one of those roles? Sure. And then you meet more people, and the next thing you know, you're getting calls, or you're, doing stuff.
Or you're getting involved
Or you're
in
getting
some
involved.
way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I did when I moved to Westchester, you know. Got a couple recommendations and did a couple shows, and then got to know people and got more confidence, and just kept going.
One of my episodes is going to be talking to a friend of ours who's an attorney who started playwriting.
Oh,
And he's had 2 one-act plays produced in a workshop setting with equity actors. And it's interesting that they're able to pull in people who will do this for a night, 1 performance or 3 performances. And it gives you the sense that there is this whole kind of, I don't want to call it underground, but it's something we don't see if you're not in that theater world where you're trying out new material and working with people and that sort of thing. It sounds
network
very
of
exciting.
that going on. I mean, there's lots and lots of people and companies that are really focused on developing new work, because that's what it's all about. We can't just do Rodgers and Hammerstein and Death
Our
of a
town.
Salesman for the rest of our town. Exactly.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
always looking to nurture new talent for sure. Yeah.
Have you ever been in a situation where you are working on a new play or working in a new?
I'm doing one on Monday. On
Really?
Monday, this organization called Rule Productions is doing an entire day of readings of new full-length plays. They've had their initial competition. They've chosen, I think, 5 or 6 plays. And on Monday, on West 54th Street, all day long, we're going to read those plays exclusively for industry professionals, right? So for venues, for producers, et cetera, for people who might be able to pick that up and turn it into a show. So there's a lot of that, and I got the chance to do that, and we've both done stuff like that over
Wow.
the years. Yeah, there's a lot of it happens.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
I remember as an NYU student, a film student, you could put out a call for auditions for certain parts, and you'd be inundated with
Pictures,
with
resumes,
pictures
right.
of people willing to do stuff for a film student. Because you never know who's going to be the next Martin Scorsese coming out of NYU, or Chris Columbus was one, or Spike Lee, right?
No doubt.
Yeah.
So Kathleen, we have a friend in Nyack. His name is Peter Danish, who's a writer. He wrote a play. He was interested in having a reading of it. So I actually performed in the first reading, I think, that was ever done of this play. And then he wanted to take it to the next level. So Kathleen ended up directing the first sort of larger reading of this exact play. That was 5 years ago, maybe more.
Maybe more.
That play, what's it called? Last Call?
It's called, I forget, it had a different title when I did it, but
Yeah.
now it's called Last
It's about
Call.
Herbert von
an imaginary meeting in Vienna, I believe, with Leonard Bernstein and von Karajan.
Wow.
It's called Last Call because it's in a hotel bar. That's what it is, in a hotel bar.
So it's
And
getting
just
its first professional production starting like in a week in New York City.
In the
Oh,
city.
my
So
gosh.
it took years, but we were in on the ground in the very beginning of it, and so that's what happens. It's all about
That is
development.
incredible.
it is. We're excited.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And it says a lot to be in this region, right, in the New York
Oh, for
area.
sure.
Yeah, yes.
Where this stuff is really happening, and it really
Yes.
does happen here.
Definitely.
Which is just super cool. And I'm wondering, what does success look like to you now? I mean, do you think getting into a Broadway show is successful, or is what you're doing now getting cast? Is that what success looks like to you
both
now?
are great. If I can keep doing what I'm doing now, then I'll consider it successful. You know, I think just the pursuit of that, keeping busy and having a voice, making a contribution is great. I have goals, but I have, aspirations that would be great too. But I'm consider myself successful right now.
Oh, that's great.
For what that's worth.
That's great.
Yeah.
Kathleen, what about you? What does success look like to you?
That's a little bit where I am. I know what I like to direct. I know the kind of things I like to work on. And I don't have, it's not like I'm like, okay, I did these contemporary plays. Now I want to do Moliere. Now I want to do Shakespeare. And no, I don't aspire to that. And they're wonderful, but that's not me. I gotta say, it's such an extraordinary thing to take a play and to go from reading it and the audition process to like the entire arc of the rehearsal period and to open a show. To me, success is you open your show and someone sees it, and later they say to me, several days later, I run into a friend or something like that, and they say to me, we talked about it in the car all the way home. That to me is success, and those words, you can't match them. They can't be beat. As far as I'm concerned.
That's great. I have to. Okay, so I would love to do, for the first time on Call to Create, I want to do a lightning round with, okay.
Here we go.
I think this will be a lot of fun.
I have a sip of coffee here.
Okay, no. Easy question. Okay, what's your favorite musical?
Most Happy Fella.
Oh, I love Most Happy
doubt.
Fella.
Guys and Dolls.
Two winners.
Same composer.
Same composer.
Right.
Yeah,
Frank
same
Lesser.
composer.
Frank Lesser.
That's
Good
right.
job,
But
Betsy.
bonus
Nice.
points. I told you I'm a theater nerd.
Exactly.
If you two could be cast together in any play or musical, what would it be?
The gin game. It's just the two characters, two old people sitting on the stage.
If we could get in a time machine, I think we could do Laurie and Curly in Oklahoma.
You're not
That would have
Curly.
been fun. Yes, I am.
I'm Laurie, but I don't think you're Curly.
All right, then I'll be Judd, and she's going to be Laurie.
Oh, you're not Judd either.
Oh, please, don't be Judd. Do not be Judd. Well, at least it's not Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Right?
No,
true.
that's
true.
our real life.
I didn't think of. Oh no, it's
No.
If you could invite any theater or film person, living or dead, to a cocktail party, who would you want to invite?
wow. To a cocktail party.
Wow, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
A cocktail party though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think about if I could go back in time and see a show that I had never seen.
Okay.
But in terms of a cocktail party,
Who's someone you'd always wanted to meet?
I always wanted to meet John Raitt.
yeah.
John Raitt is one of my favorite
Yes.
performers. I thought his voice was just extraordinary. So I think I
Who
would
would I want to
love to just sit and chat with him with a martini or something.
That's lovely.
Doris Day, my favorite
Really?
actress.
Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh.
That's who it is.
you
Doris
go.
Day. Yep, I just thought of it.
Well, I was thinking of someone like
Shakespeare.
Noel
or-
Coward.
Noel Coward. No,
or
not us.
Cole Porter. No.
No.
They'd all be
They'd be
interesting, too.
interesting.
Yeah.
They'd be interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else you want to chime in on your new lives as theater pros, old hands, moving forward?
You know, you when I was thinking about this, I think a big part of what your program is about is talking about is showing people that this can be done, that your life isn't over ever. You know, that always that creative impulse can be acted upon. And so I think I would just say, yes, that's exactly right. And whatever it is, if you have the urge, maybe I'll seem foolish. Maybe I won't be good at it. You know, maybe I won't like it once I do it. So what? Do it anyway. You know, see what happens.
You know, the word I hear so often when I talk to people about this is fear. I'm so afraid of not being good, of failing, even if I try, and I try a little bit and I fail, I don't want to try again. I think it's really sad because what in this life is stopping you? What do we have to be afraid of, right?
I'm going to tell you something. That fear is, it doesn't go away. That's the other thing. I did all those shows I did last year. I still was scared that I was going to forget my lines, that everyone else in the cast was talking about me behind my back. He's not really very good. You know, all that, it doesn't go away. That's how our minds work to some degree. You just got to do it. Otherwise, sit home and do nothing.
And that's not an option
No,
for any of us, I don't
right.
think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Steve, Taylor, Kathleen Mahan, thank you so much. This has been absolutely delightful. Thank you so much for being with me on The Call to Create.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thanks.
Yeah.